So if you're teaching a motor skill, one thing we know about learning motor skills is the person has to be present to what they're doing. There's no point in you being present to something else while you're trying to learn something like pronunciation. And similarly, once you are present to what you're doing, you have to develop sensitivity to the effect of a tiny movement of a tongue. What is the effect of a tiny movement of a tongue in terms of what it feels like, what it sounds like, etc. So these two things need to be worked on, and they're going to need to be worked on throughout our course. This is not something we just do at the beginning, but we somehow have to launch students into the idea that this is going to be important for them to actually become present to what they're doing with themselves and more sensitive to it. And so the way we start classes off is we start with an exercise that Rosalind did in a little way with you in French beforehand, but we do in a more extended way in English, because it's more important in English that students are very familiar with the inside of their mouths. Because for English, they're going to have to change more. From the students from most languages, they're going to have to change more about the way they speak than going, say, from French to Italian. English is quite a big step in terms of the way we use our mouths compared to moving from some languages to some other languages. So what we tend to do is start off with an exercise something like this. This is a classic cutaway of a human head. And you can see that you've got the jaw and you've got the nasal cavity up here. What we've done, though, is we've rubbed out the profile of the roof of the mouth, and we've erased the tongue. And what we ask our students to do, we give them a copy of this drawing, and I'm going to ask you to do it mentally because you haven't actually got copies in front of you. But what we ask students to do is to explore the inside of their mouths with their tongues and fill in this diagram. Fill in from where the roof of the mouth starts to where it finishes, and fill in what the shape of their tongue is down here. And the only tool they have available to do that is their tongue. They can't look inside their mouths, so they have to start exploring and being very present to what's inside their mouths, and also develop increasing sensitivity to get the fine details right. So I'm just going to give you 30 seconds. If you've got a piece of paper, you might just want to use the tip of your tongue to explore, to start with, the roof of your mouth, and see if you can draw in what's the shape of the roof of your mouth. And of course, some students will make a very good job of this. What we want to do is for them to be increasingly sensitive. So while they're doing this exercise, if a student does it very quickly and is very good at mapping this out, we can ask additional questions like, what's the texture of the roof of your mouth? So as you run your tongue from front to back, is the texture which you're encountering always the same? And of course, what people find, and what you might investigate for yourself right now, is that while it's soft at the back and at the top, and then it goes hard again, as it comes down again, as we're coming, I mean, I'm sure you're aware, I'll move this on, because I'm sure you are all aware of what the inside of your mouth looks like. But you can ask students to focus on this area here and feel the texture here. And if you take the tip of your tongue now and focus on that area there, you might find that it's got quite a curious texture. So this is the kind of work we do with our students. For the first 2 or 3 minutes, we also ask them to draw the shape of their tongue so they have some sense of what's going on there. And we get two things out of doing this. One is that we are going to have to name things like the tip of the tongue. They are going to have to know about the position of their alveolar ridge for speaking English if we're going to be giving them articulatory instructions on how to speak English. But most of all, what they're developing is the idea that being present to their articulators and becoming more and more sensitive to them is going to be something which is useful and which they're going to use throughout the course. So that's the first thing. That's the way we start off a course before we ever get going on to sounds.